Cha eva veda durmedhire Dharyante purushire vyatha Evam chakara bhagavan Vyasa kripana vatsalaha Shri Shuddha Dvaja Bandhunang Praina Shruti Gochara Karma Shreyasi Mudhanang Shreya Evang Bhaved Iha Iti Bharatam Makyanang Kripaya Munina Kritam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Vyasadeva, who is very kind to the ignorant masses, edited the Vedas so that they might be assimilated by those who are less intellectual. And out of compassion, the great sage thought it wise that this would enable human beings to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, Vyasadeva compiled the great historical narration known as the Maha-Bharata. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Maha-Bharata Part 1, Chapter 11. The Pandavas wed Draupadi. Bhima and Arjuna were both bruised and bloody from the battle with the kings as they turned and walked toward the stadium's southern gate. They were surrounded by Brahmanas who praised them with great joy. With difficulty, the two brothers pushed their way through the crowd and out of the arena, appearing like the sun and moon emerging from behind the clouds. Some ways from the stadium, by the roadside, the other Pandavas and Draupadi were waiting for them. Seeing Bhima and Arjuna returning safely from the fight, they embraced the two heroes, and together they proceeded to the potter's house. Meanwhile, back at the house, Kunti, who had not accompanied her sons to the Swayamvara, out of fear of being discovered, was feeling great anxiety. It was past sunset, and her sons had still not returned. What could have delayed them? Perhaps the Kauravas had recognized them and killed them. Or maybe the Rakshasas had come all together to avenge the killing of Hidimba and Baka. Kunti remembered Vyasadeva's assurances. But could the great sage have been mistaken? As Kunti sat in the still evening air, lost in thoughts of affection for her children, suddenly Arjuna entered the hut and called out, "Oh, mother, we have returned bringing excellent alms. Why, just see the wonderful jewel we have obtained today." Filled with relief and happiness just to hear her son's voice, Kunti called back, Very nice. Now, just share among yourselves whatever you have acquired. Kunti then looked up and saw Arjuna enter her room, accompanied by Draupadi, who immediately bowed low at Kunti's feet. By now, the princess had discovered the identity of the brothers and was joyful to know that she had been won by Arjuna. Draupadi greeted the venerable Kuru queen with appropriate words of respect. But when Kunti saw the white-robed princess bowing before her, she gasped in horror. "Oh, what have I done? How can all of you share this woman?" Kunti caught the still smiling Draupadi by her hand and then went out to see Yudhishthir. "Oh, my son, my words have never been false. Indeed, I cannot utter untruth. But when Arjuna said that he had brought alms, why, I had no idea that he meant this princess. And so I said, 'Oh, that's very nice. Now just share it among yourselves.' Therefore, it must be so. Now tell me, what should be done?" Kunti felt her religious principles threatened. She valued truth above all else. Why, even in jest, she never lied. Fearful that her virtue had suffered a diminution, she looked anxiously at Yudhishthir. "Tell me, my dear son, how my words may prove true, and at the same time this princess may not be touched by sin. After all, it was virtually unheard of for a woman to marry more than one man. But marrying 5 men was unthinkable." Yudhishthir looked pensful. He consoled his mother, assuring her that neither she nor Draupadi would be touched by sin. He turned to Arjuna and said, "Dear Falguni, you have won this maiden. It is therefore proper that you marry her with due ritual. Kindle the sacred fire and accept her hand with the blessings of the Brahmanas." "My dear brother, what are you saying? Do not hurl me onto the path of the wicked. Your command is not consistent with virtue, in my view. How could I possibly accept this princess in your presence while you remain unmarried? Surely you should accept her hand. Then, if you so command, Bhima may marry her, and only then myself and the twins." Hearing Arjuna's respectful words, the other Pandavas glanced at Draupadi. They had all expected that she would become Arjuna's wife. But as they looked at her, the Panchala princess returned their glances. All the brothers felt their hearts invaded by love. Why, they had never seen such a maiden. It was as if she had been personally fashioned by the Creator himself. Indeed, she was as resplendent as the goddess Lakshmi, the eternal consort of Lord Vishnu. Yudhishthir could understand the minds of his brothers. He recalled Vyasadev's words. Even though Vyasa had advised Arjuna to try to win the hand of Draupadi, the sage had also seemed to suggest that Draupadi should become the wife of all the Pandavas. Although rare, such an act need not be unrighteous if sanctioned by an authority like Vyasa, especially if it was performed in order to preserve some other higher religious purpose. If Draupadi became the wife of only one of the Pandavas, it would most certainly create rivalry and dissension among them. and Kunti's words would also then become false. So all of this seemed to be a divine arrangement. Making up his mind, Yudhishthira spoke. So, we shall all marry the blessed Draupadi. And upon hearing Yudhishthira's words, all the brothers became joyful. Yudhishthira was equal to their father Pandu. His authority was final. His word to them none different from an order given by the Supreme Lord himself. Draupadi must surely become their common wife. They all now glanced openly at her, and she looked down shyly. And as they pondered the import of Yudhishthira's command, the potter came to inform them that they had visitors. At the door were Krishna and Balaram. Those two Yadava heroes entered the room and saw Yudhishthira seated on the floor, surrounded by his brothers. With his powerful shoulders and well-developed arms, the handsome Yudhishthira resembled Indra sitting amid the principal gods. Krishna folded his palms and said, "I am Keshava, and here is my elder brother, Baladeva." The Pandavas were delighted to see their cousins. They stood up at once, and Krishna touched Yudhishthira's feet out of respect. Krishna embraced Bhima and Arjuna and received respect from the twins. Both Krishna and Balaram also touched Kunti's feet, while she shed tears of happiness upon seeing them. After they had all exchanged appropriate greetings according to their status, the Pandavas gazed at Krishna. They marveled at how, although he was the Supreme Lord of the entire creation, Krishna had accepted the role of a human being and was now their relative and friend. Krishna inquired about their welfare, and Yudhishthira replied, "We are all well, my dear Krishna. But tell me, how did you manage to trace us out?" "My dear Yudhishthira, fire is always visible, even when covered. Who but the Pandavas could have performed such feats at the Swayamvara? O conqueror of foes, by sheer good fortune you have escaped from the fire, and by that same good fortune Duryodhana's sinful plans came to nothing. Now be blessed. May you grow in prosperity, just as a fire in a cave gradually grows and spreads itself all around. But now I must leave, before I draw attention to you and give away your disguise." Then Krishna and Balaram stood up and left quietly. The Pandavas sat for some time thinking about Krishna. They were heartened by his show of support and encouragement. They felt for sure they would soon be restored to their proper position in Hastinapur. However, unknown to the brothers, Dhrishtadyumna had also followed them back and was now lying concealed near the hut. He watched in surprise as Krishna and Balaram came and went. Who were these Brahmanas that the two all-powerful Yadava heroes felt the need to visit? They must not be ordinary ascetics. Dhrishtadyumna cautiously moved closer and peered through the window. Kunti was in the middle of instructing Draupadi how to prepare the Pandavas' meal. She told the princess that after having offered the food to God and then, giving a portion to the Brahmanas, Draupadi should divide whatever was left into 2 portions. Draupadi should give 1/2 to Bhima and then divide the rest between the other 4 brothers, herself, and Kunti. Dhrishtadyumna watched as his sister cheerfully did as she was instructed, giving half of the food to the huge-bodied youth who had thrown Shalya down in the arena, and then distributing the remainder to the others. After they had all eaten, they lay down to sleep on beds of deerskins spread over soft grass, their heads pointing towards the south. Kunti laid across the line of their heads, and Draupadi laid at their feet. Dhrishtadyumna saw his sister smiling in great happiness as Draupadi accepted her new, apparently humble position. And as they laid there, the brothers began speaking amongst themselves. From his position at the window, Dhrishtadyumna could hear them talking about celestial weapons, chariots, elephants, bows, arrows, and swords. They discussed the battle with the kings in the stadium, laughing as they described how Bhima and Arjuna had routed the bellicose monarchs. So by now, Dhrishtadyumna had seen and heard enough. It was obvious that these men were powerful warriors. Surely they were royalty in disguise. Dhrishtadyumna quietly left and then went back to his capital to inform his father of everything he had witnessed. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Back in Panchal, King Drupada was anxious. His beloved daughter was gone, but he did not know who had exactly taken her. He pondered on the day's events. Who was that man who had hit the target? Was he really a Brahmana? Maybe it had been simply by luck that he had succeeded in the test. Perhaps he was a Vaishya or even a Shudra, casting Drupada's noble line into disrepute. Or maybe he was a great hero of the royal order. But why then would he have disguised himself as a Brahmana? Perhaps he actually was Arjuna, who somehow or the other survived from the terrible fire of Varanavata. But that was surely too much to hope. And while Drupada sat absorbed in thought, Dhrishtadyumna entered his chambers. After bowing at his father's feet, the prince described everything he had seen. Dhrishtadyumna was convinced it was the Pandavas who had won Draupadi, and he happily explained how he had followed them to a hut on the outskirts of the city, and how Krishna and Balaram had visited them, and how he had heard them speak the language of warriors. The 2 Brahmanas who fought in the hall left and joined 3 others. They appeared to be brothers. Within their midst was a lady who shone like fire. I believe she is their mother. They spoke together in voices as deep as black thunderclouds. There is no doubt that these men are neither Shudras nor Vaishyas. Certainly they are of the royal order. In my opinion, they are the Pandavas who are living in disguise ever since escaping Varanavata. Drupada was extremely pleased to hear his son's words. And as soon as dawn broke, Drupada called for his priest, asking him to go to the potter's hut in order to ascertain the identities of these brahmanas. The priest left at once, and arriving at the hut, applauded the Pandavas for their prowess. "O most worshipable ones, the great king Drupada desires to know your names. So please tell me your family name and race. Are you by any chance the Pandavas? After all, it was the king's wish that his daughter be united with Arjuna. So if this has transpired, then nothing could be more conducive to our fame and virtue." Yudhisthira then turned to his brothers and said, "Bring water and wash this Brahmana's feet, for he is worthy of our worship. Because he is Drupada's royal priest, we should especially respect him." Immediately, Bhima did as his elder brother had directed. He had the priest sit comfortably, then offered him arghya. Yudhisthira then said, "O Brahmana, the king fixed a certain price for gaining his daughter. She was not given freely. Therefore, he has nothing to say about the lineage of the man who passed his test. All of his questions about our family and race have been answered by the stringing of the bow and the striking down of the target." Then Yudhisthira smiled. He assured the priest that Drupada need have no regrets, for his long-cherished desire would soon be fulfilled. Draupadi was clearly endowed with the auspicious marks of one who would be married to kings. After all, what man of low birth, or one unaccomplished in arms, could have shot down the mark that he set? It was done fairly, and there is no one who can now undo this act. So the king should not lament. And as Yudhisthira was speaking, another messenger arrived to tell them that a great feast had been prepared in the city. He asked the Pandavas to please come with him to the king's palace, where the wedding ceremony could be performed properly. Yudhisthira agreed, and the messenger showed the brothers to a couple of golden chariots which Drupada had sent. After placing Kunti and Draupadi on one of them, they mounted the other, and all of them left for Kampilya. The white steeds drawing the chariots soon brought them to Drupada's palace. And as the Pandavas dismounted, they were greeted by the king's ministers, who led them to the hall where the feast was awaiting them. Headed by Yudhisthira, the brothers entered the vast chamber, which was spread with costly rugs. Many long tables lined the walls, which were studded with countless gems. On one table, the king had placed various items associated with Brahmanical life, such as sacrificial paraphernalia, holy books, and garlands. And on another table were items used by the Vaishya class, namely farming implements, ropes, seeds, and the like. And yet on another table, weapons, armor, shields, rockets, and other instruments of war, as well as expensive cloths, gold ornaments, and different types of other fine things. Everyone gazed at the brothers as they strode into the hall. Seeing those powerful men clad in black deerskins, each with the gait of a sportive lion, with broad shoulders, long and well-muscled arms resembling serpents, eyes like furious bulls, the king and his relatives, ministers, and attendants all became gladdened. Without hesitation, the heroes, in order of age, fearlessly sat upon seats of gold, furnished with silk and provided with footstools. And at once, well-dressed servants and maids fetched many kinds of delicious foods, served on gold and silver plates. The brothers dined with pleasure on the rich preparations brought before them, food worthy of kings. When the meal was over, they rose and went to the table containing the weapons and royal items. Carefully they examined all the pieces, discussing them among themselves. To Drupada and his sons and counselors, it was obvious these brothers belonged to the royal order. Then Drupada approached Yudhishthira and said, "Sir, are we to know you as Brahmanas or Kshatriyas of the royal order? Are you Vaishyas? Are you Shudras? Perhaps you are Celestials who have assumed the disguise of Brahmanas and are now roaming the earth. Truly, please tell us. For a monarch, truth is even more valuable than sacrifice or charity. And once we have ascertained the order to which you belong, we can thus arrange an appropriate wedding ceremony." Yudhishthira looked at Drupada and smiled. He spoke in a voice deep as the rumbling of clouds. "O king, you may dispel your doubts and be cheerful. There is no doubt that your desire has been fulfilled. We five are royalty, the sons of the illustrious King Pandu. I am Yudhishthira. Your daughter was won by Arjuna, who, along with Bhima, fought with the other kings. Your daughter is like a lotus that has been transplanted from one clear lake to another, and along with Draupadi in the ladies' chamber is our mother Kunti." Yudhishthira folded his palms and said that he had told the king everything which needed to be told. Surrounded by his brothers, Yudhishthira added, "O King Drupada, you are now our revered elder and superior. We now take shelter of you. Tell us what we should do." Drupada was filled with delight. Tears flowed from his eyes, and he was unable to speak even a word. For some moments he stood, while all his limbs trembled. Finally, he managed with great effort to suppress his joy and spoke. "O hero, I cannot express my happiness in words. For today my birth stands fulfilled and my dreams realized. This is indeed an auspicious day. Tell me, how did all of you escape from the fire at Varanavata?" Drupada and his two sons, Dhrishtadyumna and Shikandi, listened as Yudhishthira narrated the entire story. And when he had finished, they censured Duryodhana and his weak father Dhritarashtra. Drupada gave every assurance to Yudhishthira, vowing that he would somehow restore him to his rightful position as king in Hastinapur. He gave the brothers accommodations in his own palace, treating them with all respect. The following day, Drupada once again spoke to Yudhishthira. "O mighty armed one, today is a day marked by favorable stars. So let Arjuna take my daughter's hand with all due rites and rituals. O king, if my younger brother is to marry today, then I shall also have to accept a bride, for that is the religious ordinance. Yes, Yudhishthir, you are correct. You must accept the hand of Draupadi in the sacred marriage ceremony, or else you can give her to one of your brothers as you please. O king, your daughter shall become the wife of us all. Our mother has ordered this. It was Dhananjay who won your jewel of a daughter, but the rule among us is that we share equally any jewels we obtain. Therefore, Draupadi may accept each of us, one after another, according to age. Drupada stepped back, his eyes wide with surprise. "Oh, mighty armed hero, I have heard that a man may accept many wives, but never that a woman may accept more than one husband. You are famed for your virtue. How then can you approve an act so contrary to tradition and indeed scriptural injunction?" The king was surrounded by his sons and ministers, and they all listened carefully as the Pandava prince replied. "My dear King Drupada, morality is subtle, and its application dependent upon circumstances. One must therefore follow the Vedic authorities. My mother has ordered us to all marry the princess, and so that order has found acceptance within my mind. I have never entertained any thought of sin in my entire life. I am certain there will be no sin if Draupadi marries all of us 5 brothers." But Drupada was still not convinced. He wanted more time to think, for it was entirely unprecedented that a woman could marry many men at the same time. Drupada asked Yudhishthir if they could discuss the matter further with Kunti, Dhrishtadyumna, and the learned brahmanas in his court. Yudhishthir agreed and sat in the king's council chamber for the discussion. They had only been speaking a short while when the palace attendants announced the arrival of Srila Vyasadeva. As the sage was shown in, everyone present offered respectful obeisances at his lotus feet. Vyasadeva greeted them in return and offered blessings to Drupada and the Pandavas. After they had taken their seats, Drupada asked, "O illustrious one, is it possible for one woman to marry many men without being defiled by sin? Please tell me for certain." "O King Drupada, such a practice is certainly opposed to both the direction of the Vedas and tradition. Although practiced in former ages, it has long become obsolete. Now, tell me, Drupad and Yudhishthir, what is your opinion?" "O Vyasadeva, I have my doubts. I cannot see any way by which these 5 brothers could all become my daughter's husband, for it would mean that the elder brother would be approaching his junior's wife, and according to scripture, that would be the same as approaching one's daughter." "O Vyasadeva, O Drupad, my heart can never turn to sin, so I have no misgivings about the proposed marriage. There is the historical example of a Brahmana girl named Jatila, who had married 7 rishis all at once. And there was also the case of the famous ascetics known as the Prachetas. They too, being brothers, had accepted one woman as their shared wife. These examples are found in the Vedas, and they are not considered sinful. So, in certain circumstances, even established rules may be broken in order to preserve a higher religious principle. Kunti agreed with Yudhishthir and asked Vyasadeva how she could be saved from untruth. "O gentle lady, certainly you will be saved from sin, for this is eternal virtue." Vyasadeva then turned to Drupada and said, "I wish to speak with you in confidence, O king." Vyasadeva rose and took hold of Drupada's hand. They went into the king's chamber while everyone waited outside. And when they were alone, Vyasadeva explained to Drupada why the marriage conformed with virtue. Vyasadeva told Drupada that Draupadi had formerly been the daughter of a rishi. At that time, she had prayed to Lord Shiva for a husband, and in her prayer, she asked Lord Shiva for a powerful husband 5 times. So Lord Shiva replied, "Since you have asked me 5 times, in your next birth you will have 5 husbands." So you see, my dear king, Lord Shiva could not possibly ordain any sinful act. Furthermore, my dear king, Draupadi is actually an expansion of the goddess Lakshmi. She has appeared from the sacrificial fire in order to become the Pandavas' wife, who themselves have all been gods in their previous lives. In fact, all the brothers had been incarnations of Indra in different millenniums. Vyasadeva then bestowed upon the king the divine sight to see the Pandavas as they had been in previous lives. In his inner vision, Drupada saw the blazing form of Indra that each brother had possessed, their celestial bodies adorned with golden crowns and garlands. Struck with wonder, Drupada folded his palms and said, "O great Rishi, there is nothing outside your knowledge or capabilities. My mind is now satisfied. What has been ordained by the celestials must always come to pass. We are all simply instruments in the hands of destiny. Let my daughter accept all 5 brothers as her husbands." Drupada and Vyasadeva then rejoined the others, informing them of Drupada's change of heart. Then Vyasadeva spoke. "Today, the moon has entered the auspicious constellation of Pushya, so the first ceremony should be performed at once, and Yudhishthir can accept Draupadi's hand." Drupada ordered his ministers and priests to make all the arrangements. A sacred fire was lit in the vast inner courtyard of the king's palace. Rows of pennants bearing the emblems of the gods lined the sacrificial arena, which was full of brahmanas chanting hymns. A beautiful altar was constructed from coral and gold and bedecked with sparkling jewels. Fragrant garlands were draped everywhere, and the aroma of costly incense wafted through the courtyard. The king, along with his relatives and friends, took their places in the compound, which lay next to a large lake of lotuses. Citizens of all classes, assembled in the courtyard to observe the ceremony. Brahmanas with their heads covered by simple cloth, wealthy merchants shielding themselves from the bright sunshine with decorated parasols, and the Shudras in their brightest clothes. Everyone watched as the 5 brothers, dressed in silken robes and adorned with shining gold earrings, entered the compound just like mighty bulls entering their pen. Daumya walked at their head, his bodily luster as brilliant as the sun itself. Daumya sat by the fire and offered oblations of ghee. And as the flames rose, he chanted various mantras, invoking the presence of Lord Vishnu and the other principal deities. Then he called Yudhishthir to come forward and accept Draupadi's hand. That dark-complexioned princess, clad in bright yellow silks and decorated with many precious jewels, her long curling hair adorned with flowers, stood to receive Yudhishthir. The bride and groom then took each other's hand and walked around the sacred fire 7 times, thus sealing their union. On the days following Yudhishthir's wedding, each of the brothers married the Panchala princess. Vyasadeva informed Drupada that by the gods' arrangement, his daughter had regained her virginity each day after the marriage and before the next marriage took place. When all 5 weddings had been sanctified, Drupada sat before the sacred fire and gave the brothers charity. To each of them he gifted 100 golden chariots drawn by 4 excellent steeds. He also gave them 100 mature elephants and 100 maidservants, all adorned with ornaments and flower garlands. Drupada also gave them large amounts of gold, various precious stones, and many valuable robes. And like so many celestials, the brothers began passing their days in joy in Panchal, the king's capital. And for his part, having formed an alliance with the Pandavas, Drupada now did not even fear the gods in heaven. Meanwhile, after arriving back at Mathura, Krishna arranged for vast amounts of wealth to be sent as a gift to the Pandavas. Great heaps of unworked gold bricks and piles of precious stones, including numbers of priceless Vaidurya gems, soon arrived at Kampilya and were offered to the brothers. Costly carpets, robes, blankets, and skins were placed before them in piles. Krishna also sent the Pandavas thousands of maidservants, all of them young, beautiful, and highly accomplished. Well-trained elephants and horses, as well as hundreds of chariots, were also presented. Out of love for Krishna, Yudhishthir graciously accepted the wealth and sent back a message of gratitude. Secure in the knowledge of Krishna's friendship and blessings, all the Pandavas felt their good fortune assured in every way. Namaste Narasimhaya Praklada Klada Dayane Hiranya Kashipur Vakshaha Shilatanga Nakalai Ito Nrsinga Parato Nrsimho Yato yato yamitato nrsimha Bahir nrsimha Hridayi nrsimho Nrsimhamadin sharanam prapadye Tava kara kamala varei nakam adbhuta singam Dalita hiranya kashipu tanubringam Keshava Drita Narahadi Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare